Hello and welcome to the Comedy Club podcast right here at the Comedy Club of Kansas City. I am your host, Dustin Kaufman. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following. Make sure and subscribe. Follow us across the board on social media, simply at The Comedy Club KC. And for the Comedy Club podcast, just the Comedy Club Pod on Instagram. Today, I am here with, man, it is a pleasure and an honor. He said he's only going to sit down for 17 seconds with us today. So
this is it.
We got Joe List, and thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is wonderful. This is so convenient.
Yeah, so like we're doing this between shows tonight, between the first and late show. So if the episode's a little shorter, I'm just really excited to have Joe with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I can say a lot in a short amount of time.
So this is your second time here at the club, and not necessarily off of the club, but not your best travel weekend, not your best travel experience this weekend.
It's been insane. It's like an insane weekend. One of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. Flew here from JFK, New York City, flew across the country, halfway across the country, landed, rented a car, walked around, had a carry-on, a backpack.
You have a small car, too, by the way. You're a tall guy, and when I walked you out to the car, and is that what you ordered?
I asked for an economy because I was just like, that's the cheapest car. But usually, like 9 times out of 10, you go and they go, oh, we're out of those. It's a free upgrade, and they just give you whatever. And also an economy sometimes is like a nicer car. But I'm in a Mitsubishi Mirage.
Just the smallest little, like I watched.
It's ridiculous.
So we had Kevin Nealon last week, and I watched him get out of the back of a Cadillac, right? Mm-hmm. And like even in a Cadillac, this guy's like folding his foot up and out just to get, and then I walk you to that thing, and I'm like, how are you even getting in this thing?
It's tiny and it's a piece of shit. Like it's like normally when you rent a car, it's like, and this car is brand new. It's like got 14,000 miles on it, but it like idles like an old car, and you hit the gas, it's like. It's really not a great car. And I kind of thought they would upgrade. They asked, they're like, do you want an upgrade for such and such money? And for some reason, I just said no instinctively, but I'm like, I should have just paid an extra $12 a day for a real person car.
To do the car.
But anyway, so we got in the car, threw the suitcase in the back, and then we went out to lunch, and I worked out, and then I was about to take a shower. I did take a shower. I came out of the shower, opened my suitcase, and it was completely somebody else's suitcase.
But the exact same suitcase.
Identical suitcase and a carry-on. So at first I assumed that we were on the same flight and our suitcases were above each other. Ugh. And I grabbed the wrong thing. And I called the airport and all the stuff. And then I waited because I'm like, I'm a public figure. If they open my suitcase, they're going to see my name and Instagram, everything plastered everywhere. So I kept checking Instagram thinking somebody will find me. And then sure enough, somebody said, I think my parents have your suitcase.
Oh my God.
And they said they just landed at SFO, San Francisco. And I thought, no, Kansas City. And then I was like, are these, because this somehow not have my suitcase? And I realized they flew to San Francisco, so we must have traded bags at the airport. So I carried this bag around all day long.
Oh my God.
And so what we had to do is a hostage exchange.
Have you ever walked out of a gas station and gotten in the wrong car?
I've done very close to that. I've pulled on a handle that I was like, why isn't this? Oh, this is not my car, especially with rental cars.
Like I've done it where it's maybe identical or just close enough that you're not paying attention. I have gotten into the car, sat in the car, and just looked around and had this brief moment of panic of like, this is not my car.
No, it's terrifying. I did this in high school one time. I was on the cross-country team, and I wasn't wearing glasses at the time, but I needed glasses, I guess. And I was like, oh, my mother's here. And then my teammate was like, that's not your mother. And I was like, it is. I can see the car. And he's like, that's not your mother. I can see. And I was like, what are you, crazy? It is. And I ran all the way down there and just opened the door and sat down in the car. And this lady must have been shitting her pants. I mean, I was 14 years old, so it wasn't.
Same thing. I just got in a car that somebody else was sitting in.
Yeah.
I'm like, wrong car.
I was like, hello. And luckily she didn't shoot me. But no, I've done that. But this was one of the craziest feelings. And the lady was so nice. She called. We exchanged numbers. She called. And she was very sweet. And it was her husband's bag. But it felt like her husband was like, I can't deal with this. And then she said, she's like, we talked to UPS. We'll ship you your bag. They said, I think it'll be about $200. And I thought to myself, $200? That's insane. There's no way it's going to be that cheap. And then I went to FedEx, and they wanted it overnighted, and they were like, it'll be $600.
Oh, my God.
And evidently mine was the same price. So
are you each paying for your own bags to go? How is that?
Yeah, so mine from Kansas City to San Francisco was $583, and then the one I paid for, their bag, and then my own bag was going from San Francisco to JFK, and that was like $603. And I guess I should offer them the $20 to pay the difference,
insane.
but I haven't. But maybe I should.
So you open up, it's your suitcase, you open it up, nothing in there is yours. Like, what did it take a second to register? Like, this is not my bag.
It did, because human psychology, you're just expecting it to be yours. So your thought is not immediately, this is someone else's bag. My thought is like, oh, somebody put a book, because the first thing I noticed was like a novel on top, and I was like, that's not mine. Someone must have put that there. And then I was like, wait, when would someone have put that there? And I was like, maybe it was TSA, but I was like, I didn't check my bag. And then the shirt was totally different. And so then I realized, I'm like, oh, we must have switched somewhere. And like I said, I assumed it was on the airplane. So I called the airport and I was like, oh, after the show, we'll have to drive back to the Kansas City airport. And then this lady called and was like, we're in San Francisco. And I was like, well, luckily I don't have to drive back to the airport now. And it was just crazy. And then you kind of go through the bag trying to find anything to identify. And you feel weird because you're going through somebody's stuff. And like I said, I wish it was a woman, so I could have at least seen some underwear.
Your back suitcase will be in New York when you get.
It's now at my house.
Okay.
And then they offered to ship it here, but I just was afraid that if it came here and anything got delayed, then I'm like, now my stupid suitcase is in the A-loft in Kansas City.
Right.
So, and I have a doorman. So then I had to go out.
We're paying $300 to forward it back to New York.
Exactly. And then also, so then the worst part was, this was at 6 o'clock on Thursday. We had a 7 o'clock show. And I was already horrified because my pants were so dirty because I have a 1-year-old. So there's just like shit and baby food all over my pants. And I had to walk out on stage. And obviously I explained it when I came up, but for the 30 seconds, the whole crowd must have been like, what the hell is this?
That's so funny.
You
in sweats. And you did call them out. And then on top of that, your merch didn't show up on day one.
Yes.
Which you did sell out everything between Friday and first show tonight. So at least that happened. But the message when you went to the tracking, UPS, and it said, due to extreme weather, which is insane because we haven't had extreme weather in a week and a half here. And I had the same message. I've had the same message 3 days in a row just trying to get some Hey Dudes delivered to my house.
Well, I think UPS suck. I don't know, I've had this before with merch. It's crazy. Like, I've done a whole weekend where just merch never came. It happened to me in Tampa, which is like one of my best markets, too. I was furious. But then, I don't know, I guess UPS screws up. I don't know. And by the way, I got a message today from Delta being like, we have inclement weather tomorrow. You might not be able to fly out. And I'm like, come on. But I think now the weather's not supposed to start till 3 p.m. We land at 1:30 or something like that.
Is the weather in New York?
It's in New York, yeah.
My God.
But hopefully,
can you switch to a red eye? It's way too late for that. I guess.
I think it's too late. But I think we'll get out. The plane is already here, and
well, let me know if you're stuck in town. I'll for a day or something like that. I'll take lunch, whatever.
Well, worst case scenario, we'll watch football in a hotel. I've had that happen before, and it's weird because I would be bummed because I have a child who I'd like to see, and I go on the road again on Thursday, but. There's something kind of fun about being stranded in a town when you don't have a work. Because normally when you're in a city, you're like, I got a show tonight. I got to get ready. To not have anything is kind of pleasant. You feel that nice feeling of like, just hanging out.
You talk about Pearl Jam on stage a little bit. You mentioned them. I heard you mention just briefly for a moment.
I love Pearl Jam.
And then after the show last night, I saw a very big Pearl Jam fan come up and talk to you, and you guys had a nice conversation about that. I haven't really followed Pearl Jam's career since like the 90s, the whole grunge thing. I still love everything I hear, but I had a song on repeat last year. I had a good friend, local comedian, pass away, Thai Food Panda, and I just Breathe came on.
Oh yeah, I love that song.
On my playlist, and I'm like, it just hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And so between that and then the Willie Nelson, like what he does with his son, I literally would listen. I think about 3 days straight. I just had that song on.
Oh, it's a beautiful song. I love that song. It's like the great love ballad of Pearl Jam. Yeah, it's a beautiful tune.
So like Pearl Jam or other bands, any music. What is a song or a couple songs that have helped you through some times in life?
Oh wow! I mean, I'm a big Springsteen guy too. Like Thunder Road is like my favorite song ever. I love it, and that's the one I go to a lot. That's definitely one of my favorite songs. And I don't know. That definitely comes to mind. And Born to Run. I mean, I'm a big Springsteen guy, and like I feel like I'm so connected to Springsteen because I come from a very like blue collar town. I grew up in like the used car capital of Massachusetts, and I felt like I'm never gonna get out of this one horse town. And so all that music kind of like speaks to me. You know, I had like all his music kind of feels that in that.
Is that where you're from? Is Massachusetts?
Massachusetts, yeah. And like my father was very quiet and all that kind of stuff, so I felt like really connected to that stuff. And yeah, though that song definitely comes to mind. And
I can see that, like when you say my father was big into this, and I think I picked up a lot of music from early inspiration, stuff that I can still carry now. I know, like I remember always sitting in the back seat of his car on the way to like Hebrew school or Sunday school, whatever it was, and he's listening to the golden oldies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like Elvis and Beatles and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So like I have a very strong passion. It's not. I will put it on once in a while. It's not. I'm not going to put it as like, hey, this is what I grew and this is what I found. But I do like carry it really deep and have a passion for that stuff.
Well, there's like a psychological study or something that like meant the music we listen to in adolescence is the music that like touches us deepest and stays with us the longest. Like it's hard to find artists in when you're 40s or 30s that move you as much as when you were 14 and 15. That music that you were discovering as you were coming of age, I feel like. So that stuff still hits the hardest for me. And I'm like always trying to find new music, and there's a lot of new music I love, but I always end up going back to those songs from.
Do you ever just get tired of listening to the music that you've listened to for like 30 years, 20 years?
I do a little, and I think like there's so much music I got to get into and sometimes I'll find new artists as I get older. Like Brandy Carlisle is somebody I got really into. Now that's like 10 years ago, but like I got like super into her and like just went all in and started seeing her a bunch and stuff. And then I discovered John Prine kind of later in life. So I'm always trying to
Teddy
find new
Swims
stuff.
was probably the first new artist that I got into in a long time. I really enjoyed
I don't know
his music.
Teddy Swims.
But there's sometimes if I'm really just like, I don't want to hear any of this anymore, I'll just put on tribal music.
Yeah.
Just the drums and the chant. It's just the root of music. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, and I will do that. And I think that's where podcasts too a lot, where I'm like, I'll just listen to people talk for a while.
Yeah, of course. No, now it's funny. I'm always listening to something. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I don't listen to any comedy podcasts. I listen to all like psychology podcasts and stuff. Or now I just started listening to books, which I was always reluctant to listen to books because it's my own ego. I like holding a book and having like a shelf of like, these are all the books I've read. With audio, you can't show off your collection. So I was like, I'm not going to listen to books. And then I started listening to books, and I'm like, this is awesome. I don't know why it took me so long. I'm an idiot.
First book on tape I listened to was The Hobbit. It was years and
Oh,
years
nice.
ago. So that was the first one I ever like listened to, I think.
I just finished listening to a book about Kurt Cobain called Heavier Than Heaven. It was like a 16-hour thing, and it just put me in the world of like Seattle in the 90s. I loved it.
Like, is it from a child?
Yeah,
Oh,
from
that's cool.
baby all the way to death, and it was like really, really great. I just enjoyed being in that world. I mean, it got obviously quite dark and depressing, but
Right.
it was just fun to like be in there for a while. I really enjoyed it.
I'm still stuck in that whole grunge era, I think.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
love it.
that was, I just, I was 10 in 90, so by the time like 93, 94 came along, I was all about it.
Yeah,
You
same. I'm 2 years younger than you then, I guess.
Okay.
That was awesome. I mean, I really think. I mean, everyone thinks
I went
they're
from Crisscross to Primus, or Crisscross to Metallica to Primus.
right. Yeah. I had all that too. And it's funny because everyone thinks their time is the best time, but I really do like objectively think the 70s and 90s for film and music were the best time. 90s was also like peacetime and
80s had a lot of great comedies.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
A lot
that
of
was
great
heyday of
comedies
comedy.
in the 80s for sure.
Yeah, but
Not too. I mean, you had a great, but not as many highly marketed comedy films these days.
yeah,
unfortunately.
no, it's a bummer. And I think what I've heard, one big theory about that is that like DVDs and VHS sales, because comedy never did great at the box office, but they would become like a cult class, like Office Space, and all these movies would become huge with rentals. People would start renting comedies and word of mouth, but people don't do that as much. So it's all fucking comic book.
They just make
Stuff.
Avengers funny.
Yeah. That's what someone else said. Yeah, it's like a lot of the comedy writers just punch up, comic book movies. Now it's like, I don't really watch comic book movies, but whatever that guy is, that's the funny guy. what's the comic book that's red and black and he's funny?
Oh, Deadpool.
Deadpool. Yeah. Like Deadpool is like
Ryan
the
Reynolds
comedy
and
now.
stuff,
Yeah. Instead of
So popular too.
yeah. So, but I think
Are you a fan of those? Is that genre?
no, I never got into. I looked the part, but I never got into comic book sci-fi things. Really,
I would believe either way. Honestly, I could believe either way.
I'm a big drama. I'm a big art house drama dork, and I like a movie with just two people walking around talking. A guy's cheating on his wife, and he doesn't know what to do, and he thinks he might kill her. I like that kind of
Just good dialogue.
yeah. Woody Allen, Scorsese, that stuff.
Yeah. Congrats on your podcast, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Tuesdays with Parables.
Tuesday. Tuesdays with Stories. We're going strong. It's like 11 years, 12 years. I don't know how long the hell we're going.
Massively popular.
It does well.
I do enjoy listening to
Oh,
that
thank
as
you.
well on occasion.
I appreciate it.
And I guess with Mark Norman
Mm-hmm.
and both of you, and I want to thank you too, because you both have kind of reached out and taken one of our own house comics kind of under your wing, Dayton Bis.
Oh, yeah. I
And
love Dayton.
and helped open doors for him as well. So it means a lot to, for me, we've been here just under 6 years, and to see people that have started here are already out in New York, opening for people like you and Mark, and just working hard. It makes Papa happy.
Oh, good. That's great.
I do feel that connection to my comedians.
Yeah, that's good. No, I met Dayton here. He was emceeing, and then he picked me up in like an old pickup truck and had like a Dylan deep cut going, and I was like, "Who the hell's this kid?" And we kind of, and then we went to the movies together. And I don't always hang out with the MCs or whatever. And then he moved to my neighborhood. He was like 2 blocks away. I can't get rid of this kid.
So did he know you lived in that area?
I don't know actually. I don't know if he originally moved there, but I remember he had hit me up when he came to New York, and then all of a sudden he lived down the street. So I was like, well, come by, and I'd have little hangs and stuff, and he's always quiet. It's weird because he's like 22 years old, and me and my friends are all in our 40s and 50s, and so there's just a boy in the corner. He's great. And I just work with him in Oklahoma City too, and he sold his book. He made like $1,200. I was blown away.
Look him up. Find him. Dayton Bis at BISSETT. Find him on the Instagram. He's,
Comedian and author. Yeah. I did his podcast once too.
Yeah, his book of suicide notes.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah.
No, he's great. He's a great hang and a great comic.
Very popular podcast, Tuesday with Stories. And what do you think led to the success of that podcast? I mean, outside of both of you, just your consistency, like on the road promoting stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of comics who do podcasts that might not hit, but I mean, there is a special connection with that one.
Yeah, I mean, we started a long time ago. It's funny because it felt like podcasts, there was tons of podcasts, and everybody had a podcast at that time, but now it's like really a ton of podcasts. I mean, so we're like one of the oldest, longest running comedy podcasts at this point now. We started in 2013, I think. So, yeah, this will be our 12th year, which is insane. And someone said it was like such a compliment. They're like, I like this podcast because it sounds like two people desperately trying to entertain me. And Mark and I we're extremely influenced by Seinfeld, the TV show. To me, we're basically just ripping off the TV show Seinfeld, but now our audience is so young, they don't realize that.
Right.
Which I always think, I'm like, if someone listened to this and never saw Seinfeld and then watched Seinfeld, they'd be like, hey, what the hell? But we do that kind of fast talking and puns, and we kind of play up our ignorance, and there's not a lot of lull. We're just kind of going back and forth and fast, and Mark is the funniest person I know, and I'm very funny too, and I think that it's just really silly and irreverent. We very rarely talk serious about anything, although some people take things we say serious every once in a while. And so I think it's just straight comedy. I think we're just silly and consistent.
Conversational and very punchy.
Yeah, exactly. It's very punchy. There's not a lot of like setup. It's a lot of quick jokes, and I think Mark and I really work well off of each other, and now we just know each other's rhythm, where we have the ability to pause, and I'll say something, I go, no, you're going to say something there, boom, there it is, I'm back to me, back to you, and we just kind of...
So how long were you guys friends prior to starting the podcast?
That's a good question. A couple of years, I guess, probably about 2 years, 2.5 years, and then...
You met in comedy?
Yeah, we met through comedy. We had the same manager when I first met Mark. We had the same manager, and we did like my manager set us up to drive to Boston together. I was going to Boston, and he's like, he'll ride with you. He'll give you a ride. And immediately we started talking Seinfeld, and we're both like have like an autistic knowledge of the show, as does Matt Wayne, my opener, who's downstairs. And that was like the greatest bond to me, where people would do deep cuts from Seinfeld. I'm like, oh, you're like me. And then we started talking comedy and had all the same kind of influences and stuff. And so we started kind of talking in that rhythm, and I just thought, oh, this guy is the best guy for a podcast. And also I could see that Mark was like a guy who was a little all over the place with keeping a schedule and all this stuff, but he was pure comedy and driven as a comedian. So I was like, oh, that's a great partner, and it's been awesome. And then Mark has blown up. Now he's on Rogan every 6 weeks or something like that, which is fantastic. Brought in a huge audience of which half of them hate me because
the heat of that show is so like untouchable almost. It's almost like the new Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Because like we've had comics who have been on the Tonight Show like on like Tuesday here that weekend, and you don't really feel that bump anymore.
No.
But we've also had comics who have been the guest of Rogan, lucky enough like that week.
Right.
And you really feel that bump.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I just had this happen where Kill Tony's another huge show. I did the Tonight Show and Kill Tony on the same night. Like it came out the same night. And I think I'm grateful to do both. But the Tonight Show had, I think, like 80,000 views, my set. And then Kill Tony had like literally 1.5 million views. It's unbelievable, the difference.
I was watching Kill Tony at one point, and like just the waywardness. You know what I mean? Like the freedom of it, the darkness, the grittiness, if you will.
Yeah.
And thinking like this is like what's selling tickets for comedy right now. It's insane, like the freedom that's inside the industry, that it's so comic driven these days.
No, it's insane. And I mean, he does Madison Square Garden with the show.
Sold it out twice.
Yeah, he just made his own TV show that started in the belly room at the Comedy Store and just kept growing and growing and growing. And it's really, like the freedom is unbelievable. You can, if you have enough money to kind of fund a little thing, you can start building something, and it's really awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, we do our podcast and we do well with it, and we don't answer to anybody. There's no rules. It's just the two of us.
To anybody watching, anybody who's thinking about starting their own podcast, whether it's just a couple friends, maybe somebody with like a niche interest, or comedians, what advice would you give to them?
I think be consistent with it for sure. I think that's what's helped Mark and I, is just every Tuesday we put it out. It comes out. It's reliable, and it's been there we do it every week. We take 1 week off at Christmas every year for 12 years, so being consistent. And now it feels like, because there's so many podcasts, you have to try to stand out somehow, have some kind of niche. That's what these guys, like Kill Tony's done so well. Adam Ray has done with the Dr. Phil show, which is also massive.
He's come up a couple times on this podcast, but his growth, I mean, just watching him explode. We've had him a couple times, and now he's going to be at the theater doing his Dr. Phil tour here in a few months, and it's
wild.
It's wild, man.
And he, by the way, could not be nicer. Like the nicest person I've ever met in my life. And that's what those guys have done. Those kind of LA guys created TV shows. Like, I'm down here being like, is this funny? Here's stuff I thought of. And these guys just have like TV productions on the road. I'm like, oh, I should think outside the box. So I'm not the right guy to ask. But
so you've had the podcast almost 12 years. You had been doing it how long prior? So how long? I'm just like about 13, 15 years. How long have you been in this in stand-up?
Now, oh God, 24 years.
24
now.
years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay. I started when I was 18 years old. So it's crazy.
So you've seen the major shift in the industry. You've witnessed it go from an industry-led industry to a comedian-led industry.
100%. Yeah, kind of quickly in just the last few years, it felt like. I mean, yeah, I'm like old at this point. I mean, I had like, when I first started in Boston, I sent cassette tapes. There was a guy named Bob Mello who booked local shows, and literally he would take a cassette tape because he listened to it in his car. So you'd send an audio tape and he would listen to it. And yeah, sending DVDs and cold calling clubs and going, hi, can I come and do comedy? And it was all sort of gatekeepers and everything to now just you self-produce, everything's self-produced.
It was easier to get to break in, I think, with guest spots and show up and have a bio and here's my tape or my DVD and my resume and just do well, and they'll have. Now you email anybody, and as a booker, I'm looking at your social media. I have,
right.
You know what I mean? It's hard, and with so many comics bring their openers that it's I'm limited on spots for my openers. So bringing in out of town features is just an impossibility, at that point too. So it's a very hard time to be an up and coming comic in your home state, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very different. And now a big thing that didn't exist when I was starting is a big thing. You reach out to comics instead of reaching out to bookers. I get people messaging me all the time with tapes being I see you're coming to town. Could I do a spot? Could I open for you? And that was unheard of when you would never write to Greg Giraldo.
Still not appreciated.
Yeah. I mean,
you know what? I'm okay with it. I don't mind it. I do think the comics should reach. I prefer them to reach out to me as well.
I agree.
Hey, he said it's cool. Are you okay with this? Cool.
Well, this is what I say to comics all the time. I'm like, if I know them, first of all, I don't really say yes to people I don't know, but I'm like, if it's cool with the club, you got to talk to the club. I'm not running the show. But it just, when I was 20 years old, it never occurred to me to email Dave Attell and say, hi, my name's Joe. Can I do a show with you? That was just crazy. But it's changed a lot. And now, you got to try to kind of build up. So I wouldn't want to start now. It's hard because you kind of build a social media by posting stuff, but then you have to post stuff and you're not really great. So you're revealing your act. It's very confusing to me now. I'm glad I'm not starting now.
So what was the shift for you in being inside of a changing industry, especially at that point? You're what, 15, starting to become almost 20 years into this industry, and now it's you have to change your marketing strategy, you have to change your approach. It's almost relearning this industry that you've been in only over half your life.
Yeah, completely. And it's weird. And I'm slow and behind on everything. I'm such a bad business guy. I mean, Instagram, I was the last comic to start posting videos. I was still posting sunsets and all that shit. I just didn't.
Look how pretty the sun.
Yeah, Sam Morrill is a good buddy of mine, and he just started posting a clip every day. And I literally was look at this idiot posting comedy. I'm this is for photos. What are you, crazy?
Right.
And I was no, Instagram's pictures. And now I started a different Instagram of Joe List Photography because I still like doing that.
What's that?
It's literally just me taking photos.
What's the page?
Joe List Photography, at Joe List Photography.
Okay.
Yeah. And I got to 12,000 views. Followers, yeah. This is how stupid I am when it comes to industry. But the big change for me was
12,000 views. It's the whole page.
Photos. It's doing pretty good. But so the big change for me was 2020. I shot a special for YouTube. I was I'm just going to make my own special, and shot it and paid for it, which is now kind of what you do. You fund your own special.
Have you released one? Have you thought about doing a coffee table book of your photography?
I think about that. Yeah, now I would like to.
Great. You're selling those shirts. People would buy that book.
I think you're right. Yeah.
It's the shipping, or if you have to take the suitcase, people would love to see that. And it's something they'd want to support too.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to start doing that because the page is getting popular and people really like it. So
yeah,
I might try to do that. And it just feels like another art form that I like, and it feels less toxic. What's nice is I don't need followers on that, so anyone says anything negative, I just block them. On my comedy one, I'm all right, I got to tolerate this because I need the followers. But anyways, I shot a special in 2020 that Comedy Central, which I don't even know if they exist anymore. They bought it for their YouTube page, and it ended up blowing up. And then I've just been doing that. I'm now just shot my 4th YouTube special that I just self-produce. And then I just made a documentary about my friend Tom Dustin, who's a comedian. That's getting a theater run. I just paid for that and shot it myself. So that's
amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it.
You're also hosting other comedian specials.
Yeah.
Trying to build. And that's what I mean when I say it's comic-led. Comics are building comics. It's not, you don't have to sit and wait for the industry to say, hey, why don't you come on this show, and then you'll get a bunch of followers and a bunch of work because you're on all this TV. It's comics going, hey, why don't you come onto my show and introduce you to my fans, and just it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting shift.
Yeah, it's fun. And to be honest, when the industry was running things more, I still was getting most of my stuff from comics then, because comics would go, hey, this club, you should book this guy. He's hilarious. And so, yeah, I've been really lucky. I mean, like most of the things I've gotten in my career were mostly from other comics helping me. And so I try to pay that forward as best I can.
Well, I hear the video. They're starting the intro video, I think, downstairs.
All right.
I'm going to let you get out of here. Joe, thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
it was fun.
The truth is, you know, he's playing it off, and I'm playing it off a little bit. But Joe, he called his agent. He said, hey, I've seen the Comedy Club podcast, and I've seen the amazing guests that they've had. And he said, I want to do that club, but only if they let me do the podcast.
I said, get me in there. I got to do it.
Get the fuck out of here, Joe List. I don't think so. But no.
I had to bring 2 people.
Yeah, it's a bringer podcast.
I got my parents are over here. They bought tickets to the podcast. So got on.
Oh, Joe, man. What's your socials? Where can they find you? What do you have coming up?
At Joe List Comedy and at Joe List Photography. And I got a new special coming soon to my YouTube. Go subscribe to my YouTube. I have 3 specials on there, enough for everybody, this year's material, I Hate Myself, and a 4th one on its way.
What's the documentary called?
It's called Tom Dustin, Portrait of a Comedian, and it'll be in theaters in March, hopefully a local Kansas City theater.
I want to book your photography, make it happen.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to try to do it.
Follow us, the Comedy Club Podcast, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.